Imagine this. A pregnant black woman, hands trembling as she clutches her belly, finds herself staring into the cold, merciless eyes of a cop who swore to protect her instead of help. He leads her to a shallow grave under the cover of night. With every scoop of dirt, her unborn child's future begins to vanish. But just when hope seems lost, a sound in the distance changes everything. If you think you know how this ends, stay with me. You don't. And before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear will leave you breathless. And if you love powerful true crime stories of survival and justice, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss the next one. What if the person sworn to protect you became the monster that tried to erase you from the earth? Ciara Page, a young black woman carrying new life within her, found herself staring into the cold, hateful eyes of Officer Owen Bradford, a man who wore a badge, but carried a darkness far greater than crime itself. And in one horrifying night, that darkness would drag her to the edge of death. But what Owen didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that love, loyalty, and justice were racing against the clock. And Ciara's husband, David, would stop at nothing to bring her back. Stick with me until the very end, because what happens next is not just a fight for survival. It's a fight for truth, love, and justice. And trust me, you won't see the ending coming. The air was thick that evening. The August heat had not yet broken, clinging to the city like a suffocating blanket. Ciara Page leaned against the counter of her small kitchen, one hand cradling the curve of her swollen belly, the other resting on her phone as she checked the time. David was late, again, but she didn't mind not tonight, because he was working overtime at the fire station, every extra hour adding a little more security for the family they were about to start. Ciara smiled faintly. She was 7 months along now, her body aching and heavy, but her spirit strong. She had survived so much already. The sideways glances, the subtle racism at her job, the endless microaggressions that told her she didn't quite belong. But with David by her side, she felt invincible. That illusion shattered when a sharp knock rattled her front door. It wasn't David. It wasn't family. It wasn't even a neighbor. It was Officer Owen Bradford. Bradford wasn't just any cop. He was the kind that made headlines for the wrong reasons, known in hushed tones among black residents as the Hawk. He circled, he stalked, he preyed. And tonight, for reasons Ciara could not yet fathom, he had chosen her. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his voice carrying that mock politeness that sent chills through her spine. "We've had some reports. Need to ask you a few questions." "Reports? About what?" Ciara hesitated, gripping the edge of the door. She should have shut it. She should have called David. But something in Bradford's stance, the way his hand lingered near his holstered weapon, told her that resistance would only make things worse. She stepped aside, and with that small motion, her nightmare began. Bradford's eyes roamed her modest home, lingering on framed photos of Ciara and David, smiling, arms around each other, full of hope. "You and your husband live here, huh?" he muttered. "Nice place. Shame if something happened to it." Ciara's heart thudded. "Officer, is there a problem?" Bradford smirked. "Problem is, I don't like being lied to. Heard you've been keeping things from us. Heard your husband's into things he shouldn't be." It was absurd. David was a firefighter, a man who spent his nights saving lives. But before Ciara could defend him, Bradford's tone shifted, sharper, darker. "Stand up. You're coming with me." Ciara froze. "What? Why? I haven't done anything." But the badge gave him power, and Owen Bradford had long ago learned that he could twist it to his will. He cuffed her, rough, deliberate, ignoring her protests, ignoring her pleas. And when she asked where he was taking her, he only smiled, to a place where people like you learn to be quiet. The city faded behind him as Bradford drove, his squad car cutting through back roads Ciara didn't recognize. The night grew darker, the air thicker, the silence suffocating. Every bump in the road jarred her belly. Every turn sent panic spiraling deeper into her chest. "Please," she whispered. "I'm pregnant." "You can't." "Pregnant." Bradford sneered. "Maybe the world doesn't need another one of you. Maybe I'm doing a favor." The words cut deeper than the cuffs biting her wrists. By the time the car stopped, they were deep in the woods, where no streetlights reached, where no one could hear her scream. Bradford yanked her from the car, dragging her to a clearing where a mound of dirt lay freshly turned. And that's when she saw it. A shovel, a hole, a grave. Ciara's cries split the night, but the trees swallowed them whole. She begged. She fought. She clawed at the ground as Bradford forced her to kneel at the edge of the pit. "You people never learn," he hissed. "Always running your mouths. Always thinking you're equal. Tonight, you'll remember your place." The first shovel of dirt hit her shoulder, spraying across her dress. Her baby kicked. Her breath hitched. And for the first time, Ciara truly believed she might die. Across town, David Page was finishing his shift when his phone buzzed. A neighbor's text. Ciara left with a cop. Didn't look right. David's blood turned to ice. He knew his wife. He knew her fear of police harassment. And he knew, with a certainty that burned in his gut, that she would never have gone willingly. Grabbing his gear bag, David didn't hesitate. He called in a favor. The K-9 unit at his station, a loyal German shepherd named Rex, had always taken to David more than his official handler. And tonight, David wasn't about to waste time waiting for procedure. "Find her," David whispered, as Rex caught Ciara's scent from a blanket at home, and then they were off man and dog, into the night, chasing the trail before it went cold. The earth was closing in. Ciara's arms trembled as she tried to push herself free. But Bradford's boot pinned her down. Dirt rained against her face, clogging her throat, stinging her eyes. Her baby shifted violently, as though fighting too. Her voice was raw. "Please, if not for me, for my child." Bradford leaned close, his breath sour, his eyes wild. "No one's coming for you." But he was wrong, because at that very moment, in the distance, Rex barked. Sharp, feral, determined. Bradford froze. His head snapped toward the sound. Ciara's heart surged with desperate hope. Could it be? Was David close enough to save her? The barking grew louder, closer. Branches snapped. Footsteps pounded. Bradford cursed, shoving one final heap of dirt onto Ciara before reaching for his gun. Her vision blurred. Her lungs burned. Her baby twisted inside her as the world closed in. And then, "Ciara," it was David's voice. But was he too late? The barrel of Bradford's gun gleamed in the moonlight, aimed at the man racing through the trees. And Ciara, half buried, half conscious, could only pray that love would be faster than hate. The moon cut through the branches, pale and unsteady, as David Page tore through the woods like a man possessed. His lungs burned, his boots tore at the soil, but his mind saw only one thing: Ciara, the woman who carried his child, the woman he loved more than life itself, the woman who was right now fighting for hers. Behind him, Rex barked with primal urgency, every sniff of the ground, every snap of twigs pulling them closer. The shepherd's fur stood on end, his growl vibrating with instinct. He knew they were close. And then, through the trees, David saw it, a clearing. And in that clearing, his wife, half buried, gasping, her swollen belly rising and falling with shallow, desperate breaths. And standing above her, shovel tossed aside, gun in hand, Officer Owen Bradford. "Ciara!" David roared, his voice breaking. Bradford turned sharply, eyes flashing under the moonlight. The gun followed. Well, Bradford sneered. The hero husband. Right on time. You want to join her in the ground. David's chest heaved, his fists tightening. He wasn't armed. Firefighters didn't carry weapons. All he had was rage, love, and Rex by his side. You touch her again, David growled, and I swear you'll regret it. Bradford smirked. Big words from a man with empty hands. You think love is stronger than a bullet. For a moment, the world went still. The cicadas stopped their hum. The leaves ceased to rustle. It was just three men, a monster, a husband, and a dog, caught in the deadliest silence of their lives. Then Bradford lifted the gun, and Rex lunged. The shepherd exploded forward, a blur of fur and teeth. Bradford cursed. Firing once, bang! The bullet tearing through bark as Rex clamped down on his arm, dragging him sideways. Rex! David shouted, sprinting to Ciara. She was barely conscious, lips cracked, dirt smeared across her face. Her eyelids fluttered at the sound of his voice. David, she rasped, I'm here, baby. Hold on. But there was no time. Bradford roared, slamming Rex into ground, the shepherd yelping but refusing to release his grip. You mangy mutt. Bradford screamed, swinging the gun back toward David. David didn't hesitate. Years of training as a firefighter had honed his body, his reflexes. He launched himself forward, tackling Bradford just as the trigger pulled. Bang! The bullet whizzing past his ear. The two men crashed into dirt, fists flying. Bradford was stronger. Fueled by hate, his strikes brutal and fast. But David had something stronger. Desperation. Every punch he threw was for Ciara. Every block was for their unborn child. You won't take her from me. David shouted, slamming his fist into Bradford's jaw. Bradford spat blood, snarling. You people think you can take everything. Not tonight. He kneed David hard in the ribs, knocking the wind out of him. The gun slid across the dirt, landing dangerously close to Ciara's trembling hand. Her eyes flicked to it, hazy, torn between life and death. Could she reach it? Could she help? Her body screamed in protest. Her baby kicked wildly inside her, as if sensing the chaos. Ciara's arms shook, half buried in dirt, but her fingers stretched, inch by inch, toward the weapon. David saw her. Bradford did too. No! Bradford roared, shoving David back and scrambling toward Ciara. But Rex was faster. The shepherd lunged again, teeth sinking deep into Bradford's leg, dragging him down. Bradford howled in pain, the sound echoing through the trees. And in that chaos, Ciara's hand closed around the gun. Her grip was weak, trembling. She had never held a weapon before. But tonight, she wasn't holding it for herself. She was holding it for her child. David's eyes locked with hers. Ciara, throw it. To me. Her arms wavered. Bradford was thrashing, clawing at Rex, hate burning through his veins like fire. If she aimed and missed, it could all be over. Now, Ciara, David yelled, with the last of her strength. She flung the gun across the dirt. David caught it, and in that frozen heartbeat, Bradford's eyes widened as he realized he had lost control. David rose to his feet, gun aimed square at Bradford's chest. His hands shook, not from fear, but from fury. Get away from her, David hissed. Bradford laughed bitterly, blood dripping from his lip. You don't have it in you. You're no killer. That's the difference between you and me. David's finger tightened on the trigger. Every muscle in his body screamed to end it, to make Bradford pay for every ounce of pain he had caused. But before he could decide, sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights began to flicker through the trees. Panic flashed across Bradford's face. No, this isn't how it ends, he spat, reaching for a hidden knife strapped to his boot. He lunged. David fired. The shot ripped through the night, bang, sending Bradford sprawling backward. But it wasn't a kill shot. Bradford groaned, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. His eyes burned with venom. "This isn't over," he rasped. "I'll finish what I started." Then he staggered to his feet, stumbling into the darkness of the trees just as squad cars barreled into the clearing. "Help her!" David screamed as officers poured out, weapons drawn, eyes wide at the sight before them. Paramedics rushed to Ciara, pulling her from the dirt, checking her vitals. Her breaths were shallow, her pulse weak, but she was alive. David dropped to his knees beside her, gripping her hand, tears streaming down his face. "Stay with me, baby. Please. We're so close." Her lips trembled. "David, the baby, will be okay. Both of you. I promise." Rex pressed close, whining softly, his fur streaked with blood, but his eyes still locked on Ciara with fierce loyalty. The paramedics loaded Ciara onto a stretcher, rushing her toward the ambulance. David followed, refusing to let go of her hand. But as the door slammed shut, an officer rushed to David's side. "Bradford's gone. He's in the wind." David's heart dropped. The man who had nearly buried his wife alive, who had sworn to finish the job, was out there, watching, waiting, and Ciara, fragile and vulnerable, was still his target. David clenched his fists, jaw set. This wasn't over. Not until Bradford was stopped for good. The ambulance doors slammed metal on metal, sealing Ciara inside. Sirens wailed, red and blue flashing through the night as the vehicle tore down the dirt road back toward the city. David sat at her side, clutching her hand with both of his, refusing to let go. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow, every rise and fall of her chest a fragile reminder that she was still with him, still fighting. "Stay with me, Ciara. Please. Don't you dare leave me," he whispered, voice raw. The paramedic leaned over. "Her vitals are unstable, but holding. We'll do everything we can for both her and the baby." The baby. David's eyes dropped to Ciara's belly. Their child. The life they had dreamed about. The reason they had worked double shifts. Saved every penny. Built every plan for future. That little heartbeat was a fire, keeping him alive. He bent close to her ear. "We're not done. You hear me? We're not done. I'll protect you both, no matter what." But his promise was shadowed by a truth he couldn't escape. Owen Bradford was still out there. By dawn, Ciara was stabilized. The doctors managed to get her oxygen up, her pulse stronger. The baby, miraculously, was unharmed. A fighter, just like her mother, one of the nurses said softly as David held Ciara's hand. But relief was poisoned by fear, because while Ciara lay in her hospital bed, pale but alive, the news spread quickly. Bradford had slipped the perimeter. His squad car was abandoned 2 towns over. He was armed, injured, but very much alive. David's fists clenched. He stood by Ciara's bedside, watching her chest rise and fall, when the detective on the case entered. "We'll find him," the detective assured. "He's bleeding bad, but cornered animals are dangerous. You need to stay alert." David's voice was low, steady. "If he comes near her again, I won't wait for backup." The detective studied him, then nodded. "Just keep your family safe. That's your only job now." But David knew better. Bradford wasn't just coming for Ciara. He was coming for all of them. Miles away, in an abandoned barn, Bradford pressed a rag to his shoulder wound. Blood had dried across his uniform. His face twisted in pain and fury. The badge he once wore with pride lay in the dirt, discarded. "They think they can take everything from me," he growled into the darkness. "The house, the respect, the streets. That firefighter, that woman, they think they can win." His hand tightened around his pistol. I'll show them what happens when you cross Owen Bradford. 3 days passed. Ciara remained under watch in the hospital. David rarely leaving her side. Rex, ever loyal, lay curled at the foot of her bed, growling at every knock on the door. Each night, David dozed in the chair beside her, one hand always on hers. Every sound outside the room set him on edge. Every flicker of shadows in the hall kept him awake. Ciara stirred one evening, her voice barely a whisper. "David, he won't stop, will he?" David squeezed her hand. "Not until I stop him first." Her eyes welled. "Promise me, if something happens, promise me you'll protect the baby." His throat tightened. "Don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen. Not to you. Not to her. I swear it." But even as he spoke, he couldn't shake the image. Bradford slipping through the woods, eyes burning with hate, whispering his vow to finish what he started. It was the 4th night when it happened. David had finally drifted into a light sleep, exhaustion overtaking him. Ciara's monitors beeped steadily. The room dimmed except for the glow of moonlight filtering through the blinds. Then Rex's ears perked. A low growl rumbled in his throat. David's eyes snapped open. The doorknob turned. David was on his feet instantly. Who's there? The door creaked open. And standing there, gaunt, bloodied, eyes wild with obsession, was Owen Bradford. "Miss me," he sneered. Bradford raised his pistol, silencer attached. Nurses screamed in the hallway as David lunged, knocking the gun aside. The shot muffled into the wall, plaster exploding. "Ciara," David shouted. "Get down." She rolled weakly to the side, clutching her belly, tears streaming as terror gripped her. Bradford slammed David into the wall, snarling, "You should have stayed out of it, hero. Now you both die." Rex launched, teeth clamping down on Bradford's forearm. The pistol clattered to the floor. Bradford howled, swinging his elbow into the dog. But Rex refused to let go. David dove for the weapon, but Bradford kicked it away, sending it skidding under Ciara's bed. "Enough!" Bradford roared, grabbing a scalpel from the counter. His eyes locked on Ciara. "This ends now." For the first time in days, Ciara pushed herself upright, rage igniting through the weakness of her body. Her voice shook, but it was fierce. "You won't touch my child." Bradford froze, surprised. She grabbed the tray beside her bed. For stand, gauze, a glass of water, and hurled it with every ounce of strength she had. The glass shattered against his face, buying David precious seconds. David tackled him again, fists raining down, years of held-in fury exploding. "You tried to bury her alive. You tried to kill my family." Bradford clawed at his wound, blood mixing with broken glass on his cheek. "I'll never stop," he spat. But then, Rex dragged the gun out from beneath the bed, dropping it at David's side. David's hand closed around it. For a long, trembling moment, the world seemed to freeze. Bradford lay pinned beneath David, knife inches away, hatred burning in his eyes. David held the gun steady, finger on the trigger. "Do it," Bradford hissed. "Prove you're just like me." David's jaw clenched. His whole body shook with the weight of choice. He could end it here. He could erase the threat forever. But in the reflection of the gun's barrel, he saw Ciara, her tear-streaked face, her hands wrapped protectively around her belly. He saw the future he was fighting for, and he lowered the gun. "No, I'm nothing like you." At that exact moment, armed officers stormed the room, weapons raised. Bradford cursed, thrashing, but it was over. They dragged him up, cuffed and bleeding, his screams echoing down the sterile hallway. David collapsed beside Ciara, dropping the gun, his whole body trembling. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." Bradford faced charges of attempted murder, kidnapping, assault, and countless counts of misconduct uncovered during the investigation. His badge was stripped, his reputation destroyed. In the courtroom weeks later, David held Ciara's hand as she testified, her voice shaking but strong. "He buried me alive," she said, "but I lived, because love doesn't die in the dirt. It rises." The jury's verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Bradford's face twisted in rage as the sentence was read. Life without parole. His reign of terror ended behind bars. Months later, Ciara gave birth to a healthy baby girl. David wept as he held her for the first time. Ciara smiling weakly from the bed. "She's our miracle," she whispered. Rex lay curled at their feet, ever watchful, ever loyal. David kissed Ciara's forehead. "We made it. You both made it." And for the first time since that awful night, Ciara felt peace. Because while hate had tried to bury her, love had dug her out. And love, fierce, unrelenting, eternal, had won.